No DQ Galaxy, we are live with a recap of AEW Dynamite for Wednesday, December 20th, 2023. This was the Holiday Bash edition of Dynamite. Shout out to everyone out there watching this, whether it's live or on demand. Let's get right into this recap. Joey Perez, we do get quite a bit of rain in Michigan. It rains a lot. It snows, and it definitely rains throughout the year. Very different from California. Anyways, Swerve Strickland opened up the show. No intro. We went straight to Swerve Strickland versus Roosh in another Continental Classic match. It was a fast-paced, back-and-forth match. Roosh did a big dive early on in the match and then started selling his leg. He started taunting Swerve, and Swerve took advantage of this. Swerve targeted the leg. They fought on the outside of the ring for a while. And then they got back in the ring, fought on the apron. Roosh ended up tossing Swerve to the floor, and then they got back in the ring again. Swerve hit a 450. Roosh kicked out at 1. And then Swerve hit a brainbuster. Roosh kicked out at 2. Swerve was able to finish Roosh with a house call kick, followed by the Swerve stomp. And now Swerve punches his ticket in to the semifinal match, which will take place next week. Winner of the tournament will be determined at World's End. Solid match here to open up the show. And no, Darren G, I will not be doing the Prince Nana dance. I am not Greg Cherry Brand. I do not do those dances and stuff. But you can check out Greg Cherry Brand if that's something you're into, because he'll do any kind of wrestling entrance theme and taunt that you want for a fee, of course. But head over to Greg Cherry Brand for that. All right, moving on here. We had a recap of the Collision Continental Classic matches. Then we had Chris Jericho backstage talking about Kenny Omega, how Kenny Omega has diverticulitis. Jericho said he's pulling for Omega and said that he will be waiting for Omega whenever Omega is able to return. Now, there was no indication, at least that I noticed, of Jericho having a replacement partner to go up against Ricky Starks and Big Bill. So the match may have just been completely scrapped. Not sure why they can't get Sammy Guevara or somebody in there. Maybe they will. Next week, we'll get a backup partner for Chris Jericho. Next up, we had what I would like to call a pride match. Mark Briscoe versus Jay Lethal. Neither guy had a point in the Continental Classic, so it was all about just pride and not coming in last. It was the not coming in last match between these two. We had a few technical issues during the show. The screen went black on more than one occasion for about 5 to 10 seconds. Jay Lethal smacked Briscoe, and Briscoe chopped him multiple times. They exchanged chops, and then Lethal got the upper hand, did the Jeff Jarrett strut, and he went for a dive, but he wasted too much time. Briscoe took advantage, and then Briscoe hit the old Cactus Jack flying elbow on the floor. And then after the break, Briscoe, shades of Sabu, set up a chair in the ring and then jumped off the chair with a dive to the outside onto Jay Lethal. Lethal regained the upper hand when they got back in the ring, came off the top with the flying elbow. Briscoe kicked out. Crowd was chanting, "This is awesome." Briscoe went for his own elbow, but Lethal got his knees up, and then Lethal used Briscoe's J Driller on Briscoe. Briscoe kicked out of it, and then Lethal went for another one. Briscoe was able to counter. He had a burning hammer and then finished off Lethal with the J Driller to get 3 points. Mark Briscoe picks up 3 points. He gets the pride, and they shook hands after the match. Very good bout between these two. But it was hard to care about it just because they're both out of the tournament and it was just for pride. But it was still a very good match. And then we had footage shown of MJF being inducted into the Jewish Sports Hall of Fame. Good guy MJF. We also had a Wardlow video package. He said, payment for MJF's sins cannot be delayed anymore. And Wardlow vowed to bring the devil to his knees. We had Samoa Joe come into the ring saying that he's still seeking answers. He brought up the attack on Hangman Adam Page, said that maybe he wasn't asking the right people. He said there's no footage of MJF actually being attacked, so he called out MJF. Our scumbag, our world champion MJF showed up. Crowd chanted MJF, and MJF said that Samoa Joe was supposed to protect him, but he became no-show Joe and said that Joe cares about his property as much as he cares about his diet. Also brought up how nobody laid a finger on Samoa Joe. MJF said he didn't want to wait until World's End. He was ready to fight, but then the lights went out. The Devil's Henchmen showed up. They surrounded the ring. MJF and Joe cleared the ring, and then the lights went out, and there was a message that appeared on the big screen that said, "Where can you go? Who can you trust?" And a challenge was issued for the ever so prestigious Ring of Honor tag team titles, which MJF and Joe accepted the match. That will take place next week. MJF and Samoa Joe going up against the Devil's Henchmen, two random guys. Are they the Dark Order? Are they Retribution? Who knows at this point? There were a lot of them. There was like 7 or 8 guys out there this week. Segment was fine, mostly just building up for next week. We had Toni Storm, the women's champion, on commentary for Saraya versus Riho. Saraya escaped to the outside. Riho went after her. Saraya used a security card as a human shield and then took a cheap shot at Riho. She swung Riho into the barricade multiple times. After the break, Riho started to make a comeback, but she slipped on the top rope going for a crossbody, and she still connected with Saraya, but almost fell flat on her face. Then she came off the top rope with a stomp and then hit the double running knees and picked up the victory over Saraya. I was a little surprised. I mean, I expected Riho to win, but I was not expecting Saraya to lose clean here. Feels like Saraya's an afterthought at this point. Like, it just kind of shocks me that she's just there. Like, her star power feels like it's completely gone now. Ever since Toni Storm stepped into this new gimmick, and even Ruby Soho has her own storyline with the 2.0 guy. So yeah, I'm not sure where Saraya goes from here. After the match was over, we had Luther, the butler, carrying Toni to the ring, and a fight broke out. Riho got the upper hand, hit the 619, but then Mariah May hit Riho with the women's championship, showing her loyalty to the champion. And that match is now official. Riho versus Toni Storm for the women's title at World's End. Match was all right, but again, I'm Not sure what's up with Saraya, but yeah, they do have Riho versus Tony Storm set up, which I expected based off of the previous couple of weeks. Then we had a backstage segment where MJF found a black mask, which was very similar to the kind that the Devil's Henchmen are using, on the ground, and it was outside the dressing room of the Mogul Embassy. And he interrogated Prince Nana. That led to Swerve Strickland getting in MJF's face. We had our first real MJF Swerve interaction since Swerve has come to AEW. MJF brought up their history, traveling the road together, and said he's proud of Swerve. However, Swerve is not on his level. There's all sorts of levels to this. And Swerve said that's true. There are people that fail their tryouts and people that get contracts, which was a reference to William Regal turning down MJF for WWE and Swerve actually getting a WWE contract. But you have to understand that reference to know what the hell he was talking about. And then MJF warned Swerve to watch his mouth and questioned Swerve, wondered if Swerve is the devil. And if so, MJF said he's going to be the big bad wolf and blow Swerve's house down. Swerve then said he's not the devil, but he'll be the one that sends MJF to hell. And then Samoa Joe came in and got MJF out of there before things got even more heated. Good segment here. I did like it. I enjoyed the little tease of Swerve versus MJF, which right now I feel like Swerve might be the best candidate to beat MJF for the title. I don't think it's going to be Joe. And I do expect MJF to stick around past World's End. I do not see this being his last show. We had Roderick Strong versus Commander. Basically a showcase match for Roderick Strong. Commander did get in a little bit of offense. Strong was trying to ground Commander and then attempted to rip off the mask. Commander did hit a couple of high-flying moves, including a springboard moonsault to the outside onto Strong and the Kingdom, who were out there at ringside. But then Strong regained the upper hand when they were back in the ring and won with the end of Heartache finisher. No surprise here. After the match was over, Renee Paquette, the remarkable one, spoke with Strong and said that it's so obvious MJF is the devil, and then said that Samoa Joe is his best friend by proxy. We had the Kingdom showing some MJF as the devil sign, so they're really trying to tease that. Attitude Era Mark sent in a $2 super chat, says, AEW has been ice cold for over a year. Why? Well, there's a lot of answers, and people will debate what happened with AEW. They're certainly not at the level they were in 2021 when they were coming off that first Arthur Ashe Stadium show, and then they signed CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, Adam Cole, all in a very short period of time. A lot of things happened. The fallout with CM Punk, the backstage fight with the Elite, and just as I've said before, like the shiny new toy has kind of lost its luster at this point. Still a very good wrestling show, but like WWE has done, WWE over the years, they have their pattern of what they do every week, and it feels like AEW has very much fallen into their own pattern of how they do things. And while the show was well received, and it's a very good wrestling show, it's not really growing an audience. In fact, attendance-wise, they're definitely on the downtrend, except for Wembley Stadium, which is still down from this year's show, but hey, they still got a long ways to go. And I think they're going to have a good 60,000 people there for All In. It'll be a huge crowd. But beyond Europe, they're struggling with ticket sales in the United States and Canada for that matter. And their pay-per-views are still solid. And I think that's because they haven't missed. Every pay-per-view has been great. And the thing is, even if Dynamite and Collision are not necessarily must-see shows, it's still a great brand. And when it comes to pay-per-views, you know you're going to get an awesome show. But yeah, there's a lot of answers to that as to why they're struggling compared to a couple years ago. We had our main event of the evening, which was Jon Moxley versus Jay White in another Continental Classic match. And the story here was that if Jay White could somehow win, that would make him tied and give him an opportunity to be in the semifinal match, making it a three-way match between Swerve, Moxley, and himself. So Moxley tried to finish off Jay White right away. Went for the Bulldog choke and then hit a pile driver. White kicked out of that. They fought on the outside for a while. Moxley was backdropped onto the stage. Or actually, Moxley backdropped White onto the stage. My mistake. Moxley was selling his knee. And there was a funny sign at ringside. It said, "Spoiler, Moxley is going to bleed," which any other week would have been accurate. This was like the 1 week he did not bleed. So that fan looked, unfortunately, foolish on this particular evening. But I totally understand him bringing that sign. It was funny. Just didn't work out this week. Moxley was dropped on the steel steps. And then White used a steel chair while the referee was distracted. White tried to take a count-out victory. Moxley barely beat the 10 count. He hit a paradigm shift. White kicked out, and then it was back and forth. White kept trying to hit the Blade Runner. Moxley would counter it. And he did hit a stomp on White, but then White was able to avoid the Death Rider. And then he finally got the Blade Runner, executed the move on Moxley, and got the 1-2-3 victory to officially make it a triple threat semifinal match on next week's Dynamite. And then after the match was over, Swerve came out on the stage, and White took an additional shot at Jon Moxley, going after the knee once again, and then the show went off the air. It was a solid Dynamite. It was more about building up next week's show and wrapping up the Continental Classic. They did a little bit to build up World's End. It was pretty good. I think I would give the show a B-. I enjoyed it. I wouldn't necessarily say it was a must-see show, but you certainly would not be wasting your time if you tuned in and watched it live. I thought the best match was the Jay Lethal versus Mark Briscoe match, even though I didn't really care much about the whole idea of them going for Pride, but they did have a very good match. And the main event was good as well. Attitude Era Mark sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that. Says, if AEW was on a WCW arc, went H2H, would WWE go TV 14? Not sure what you mean by that. H2H. Am I dumb or am I not understanding what H2H is? Hour to hour? Yeah, I'm not exactly understanding what your question was. Maybe somebody can help me here. Head to head. if they went head to head with WWE Go TV 14, I guess he's talking about presently, like if AEW decided to go head to head with WWE Go TV 14. No, definitely not. WWE is probably not going TV 14. They have a good setup. They're making a lot of money right now, and they're doing very strong business. There's no need to risk alienating advertisers. Like there's no need for them. Yes, I got it. Head to head. You guys got to be careful because if you abbreviate things, I'm sometimes a little slow and I might not get it, and we're live. So you got to make sure it's clear what it is. Otherwise, my brain just doesn't work sometimes and I might not understand. But thank you, though. I appreciate the super chat. And I don't think WWE is going TV 14 anytime soon, if ever. Like, the only way I could see that happening is if a network that picks up Raw, for instance, wants an edgier product. But I don't think that's going to happen. I would say that's unlikely, but not out of the question. Like, it could happen one day, but I don't see it happening. First of all, AEW is not going head-to-head with WWE anytime soon, at least intentionally, other than the occasional night that they get preempted for some reason. That's it. Johnny Boy sent in a $5 super chat. I appreciate that, Johnny Boy. Thank you for that. Says, haven't donated in a while. Been watching since WrestleMania 26. Big fan. Keep up the hard work. Happy holidays, my dude. I appreciate that very much. WrestleMania 26, that was a long time ago. So thank you for watching and happy holidays to you as well. Attitude Era Mark with another $2 super chat. Thank you for that. Much appreciated. Says, do you miss the Attitude Era as much as me? I miss it because of the unpredictability of the time, and it was a big part of my childhood, teenage years, DX, Stone Cold Steve Austin, just a very exciting time to be a fan, and you never knew what you were going to get when you tuned in. Like, it was pandemonium. It was an event every week. It was like a rock concert. So I do miss it in that sense, but there are certain things about the Attitude Era that I don't think aged very well. And that's why I have mixed feelings. Like, I do miss certain aspects of the Attitude Era, but there are also other things that I think have improved in wrestling, women's division, and I think some of the angles they did were pretty lackluster. Even though they were interesting, it was also like watching a car crash. Like, it was interesting, but not very pretty. And the wrestling is way better now. Like, other than the main event scene, like some of the undercard matches in WWE were not so good during the Attitude Era. And really, a lot of the guys didn't have much of a chance. I mean, it was more about the angles. Like, you'd have a 2-minute match, and then you'd have Deborah taking off her top and that sort of thing. But it was fun. Pepper the dog was great. And yes, D-Generation X. Sorry about the abbreviation. D-Generation X. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. I very much appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. And just as a reminder, if you like the questions and answers, want to talk more about old school wrestling or even the current stuff, I am going live Thursday night, December 21st at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, the final No DQ&A video of the year. Your questions will be answered. NoDQMISC@gmail.com. You can send me questions there. And of course, you can super chat questions. Super chat questions get priority. I answer those first right when they come in. So send in your super chats or email me, NoDQMISC@gmail.com. That is Thursday, December 21st at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Check it out, and I will see you guys for that. Enjoy the rest of your week. Happy holidays, in case you don't tune in for the Q&A, and you'll catch me next time. I will be doing SmackDown also, despite it being a taped show. There will be a SmackDown live stream this Friday night, right after the show. Tune in for that. And remember, say yeah to NoDQ.com, and I will see you all next time.